You know what I think about when we say no good men, and I think to myself, you know, it's funny that, and you all tell me if you have a different experience, but a lot of what we know in as far as this term that we're throwing around, and we've chosen for our mantra and our moniker. Um, we never heard men say it, right? So
Right.
ultimately, consider the source, right? Of where it comes from. We won't get into that. We don't have to get into that, but the impact, right, is definitely measurable, right?
Oh,
Generationally, right? The impact is is tough, right? Because we hear it from again from that person, those women, those aunties, those people who are also our role models, right? And there's no counter narrative, to it because guess what? Dude's not around to show us anything different in a lot of our experiences, right? And so then we do carry that, and then we as Bo said, separate ourselves from it because that's what we need to do to get by, right? We're
right.
like, well, you know, everybody put him over there, but then in putting him over there, putting him in the hurt locker, we've also isolated ourselves,
We've
right?
cut out
Because now
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say by doing so, we cut off our own path to a better version of us.
Yep.
We can't get on that path until we get him out of that locker and we better understand what was going on. And not just for him. I also wrote something for my mama. I wrote, Mama, you did that, right? Because
Yep.
once I understood the context of his actions, it was easier for me to appreciate the nature of her response, right? It was easier for me to appreciate the venom and the vitriol that even I experienced as a child because I looked like my dad. And she ain't want to see nothing that even looked like it.
Right. Get out of here, Steve.
You gonna be just like your daddy. You
Just
ain't
like
gonna
your
be
daddy.
nothing. You gonna be just like your daddy. You ain't
But
gonna
think
be.
about that. Think about that. Every time somebody tells you in a negative way, go on, get out of here. You just like your daddy. I don't want to hear it. And you walk away with two thoughts. One, as a young man, you can't help it. There's still a part of that makes you proud, right?
Because your daddy is
associated you
and you look
to
like
him,
your daddy.
good or bad, right? So you're like, you walk away like, yeah, maybe I am like him. And you might take that negative part and be proud of it. Be like, okay, well, you keep telling me I'm like him. Guess who I ultimately start to become? Only the negative part, because you never say, oh, that was awesome, right? You remind me of your daddy. Never heard that ever. Only get it when it's a negative connotation, right? And then wonder why you become what was already spoken to, right?
Yeah.
Only the negative aspects. So it's deep.
What's going on, T.O.? Look like something resonating.
I'd like to just dovetail off of some of that. We hear the no good men concept from women because women are verbal.
Okay.
But we drink in the no good men concept because we've been damaged by men. And we stick that concept in our ears, and that's the cynicism that I was alluding to earlier, that I was cynical about everybody, women and men. I was just cynical about anybody who had a title. I ain't believing. Anybody who had a responsibility, I didn't believe that they were sold out for. Anybody who had a commitment, I believe that they were probably, falling short of it. So this cynicism just came out, and women are highly vocal, men are not. Thusly we have, forums like this where we can get together and begin to start to unpack ourselves and our journeys and all that kind of stuff and get greater perspective, work with one another in a transparent way. But I think that the concept is something that worse than the women talking about it, we have accepted it as just a rule of thumb. And coming out of that is part of what this kind of forum and this kind of dialogue can help us to do, because we're quiet about stuff. We're a lot of times we don't articulate things well or often. You know, we don't open up that locker to delve into what is it that we really, really think about ourselves and about other men and about life and about relationships and all that kind of stuff. And because we've been damaged by men, I know this is true of me. I can't speak for you, but I know it's true of me, that the no good men concept at one point in my life was something that I took as granted.
Just fact. That's part of nature. It's just what it is.
There ain't no good men out here. My daddy, you know, come on.
And listen, the women in my life have already convinced me that, hell, obviously I'm not a good man either, because I'm too much like my daddy.
Right.
So
you know, isolate yourself from the attacks of the women, because in a certain way you have to, but at the same time, there's a certain portion of you that agrees with them. Nevertheless, you know, I still got to deal with you. Nevertheless, you know, I still have drives as a man. Nevertheless, I still want to do what I want to do. Nevertheless, I'm still saddled with selfishness. Nevertheless, I'm still saddled with my own brokenness.
And those become, at the end of the day, what we end up with is an excuse to do bad things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a bad man.
Yeah.
And so it's easier to talk ourselves into the. Go ahead, Bosco. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and we will find ourselves saying, I'm not as bad as right. So it's a get out of jail card, right?
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, I did that, but I'm not like him, right?
Yeah, I ain't like that.
I don't have 15 kids. I just got a few. You know what I'm saying? I didn't do this. I just did that.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and at the end of the day, it's an excuse for us to be less than we know we should be.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. It's an excuse for us to be less than that version of us that we know is available if we'll just do the work.